You know this scene. For months, things were going perfectly. Targets hit, stock price climbing steadily. Everything seemed stable. Turnover below industry average. Engagement scores at an all-time high. The board says we've never been more stable. Then, from somewhere you can't quite see, crack. A subsidiary's books get leaked. A product that's been on the market for 5 years gets suspended. That executive who just got a long service award under investigation. You look around. Same office, same faces, same coffee machine that's been broken for 3 weeks. And everyone asks the same question. How did this happen? Weren't we stable? That's the wrong question. The right question isn't how. The right question is why now? You think it's a black swan, bad luck, one bad decision by one person at one moment. No. This is the system cashing a check it wrote 3 years ago during the stability you all praised. You thought stable meant safe. Sometimes stable just means the billing cycle hasn't arrived yet. There are 3 seats you can occupy when the system is quietly storing pressure, waiting for its moment. Not job titles. Cognitive liability positions. Seat 1, you forget. That project that got deferred 6 months ago, it's fine. That email thread about accountability that just died, no news, is good news. The internal audit that fizzled out with no findings probably means nothing was wrong. What this seat actually costs. You begin to ignore the quiet signals. Everything looks fine, so it must be fine. You write risk contained in your performance review. The real translation, latent risk, not yet triggered. You begin to reason backwards. It didn't blow up, so the decision must have been right. This habit quietly, slowly kills your ability to see signals before the bang. In meetings, you become the stable one. No one brings you risks anymore. Everyone knows your line. It looks fine for now. When the explosion finally happens, you're the last person surprised. Not because you received no signals, because you filed them under historical. But when the storm hits, you'll realize those signals were never really gone. Seat 2, you warn. You remember those unresolved issues. You raise them, you email them, you hint at them over coffee. You're the one who sees clearly. You're sure of it. What no one bills you for. Your warnings don't appear in the project closure report, but your propensity for alarm appears somewhere else. Not punishment, just categorization. Low tolerance for uncertainty. Each warning that doesn't immediately materialize quietly withdraws from your credibility account. You're crying wolf. Not because you're wrong, because the wolf's schedule doesn't match yours. By the time the wolf actually arrives, no one's listening. Colleagues avoid you at coffee. Not because they dislike you, because every conversation with you is pre-interpreted. Here he goes again. You spent 10 years being right. You just spent your audience before the performance. Seat 3. You archive. You don't forget. You don't warn everyone in earshot. You start a document. Which decisions have been deferred for more than 6 months? Which investigations ended with the individual has left the organization? Which metrics have been seasonal for 3 consecutive years with amplitudes expanding every cycle? You stop asking, why doesn't anyone take this seriously? You start asking, where in the system are these deferred problems being stored? Costs of this seat, 0 short-term return. No one pays you for pattern recognition. No one mentions your document in promotion packets. You have to maintain a weird balance, engaged enough to stay informed, detached enough not to become the designated worrier. But what happens when the balance tips too far? Are you prepared for what comes next? You participate, but you don't persuade. You raise questions, but you don't insist on answers. People find you a bit distant, not threatening, just hard to place. And you have to surrender something, the expectation that good information should be acted on immediately. If that expectation is wired into you, this seat will quietly, slowly exhaust you. 3 seats. No HR manual lists them, but you're already sitting in one. Here's what no one teaches you about stability. Wood rots from the inside. You can't see it. The outside looks fine. Paint is intact. Structure holds. Wood doesn't fail when it rots. Wood fails when the wind arrives. Wall cracks at the foundation. You can't see it. Plaster is smooth. Corner is square. Wall doesn't collapse when it cracks. Wall collapses when the rain arrives. The system has a word for this interval between already broken and looks fine. They call it stability. 3 categories of data you should quietly collect. Not to file a report, to read the cycle. 1. Deferred decisions. Over the past 12 months, how many proposals received initial approval and then just stopped? Not canceled, just deferred. Who deferred them? What was the promised re-review date? Has that date arrived and passed? Deferral is not cancellation. Deferral is burial. 2. Suspended accountability. Over the past 24 months, how many incidents were investigated and then not concluded? How many ended with the individual has left the organization? The contract has expired. Industry-wide issue. Unenforced accountability is not mercy. It's storage, and storage accrues interest. 3. Normalized anomalies. Which metrics have been seasonal for 3 years, with fluctuations growing larger every cycle, but the attribution language never changes? Which complaint categories have been isolated incidents for 24 consecutive months, yet appear in every monthly report? Which control recommendations have been in implementation for 2 years, with no acceptance check evidence archived? Systems legitimize persistent anomalies through vocabulary. Seasonal, isolated, case by case. This is Pressure's most concealed storage format. Now read what you've collected. If backlog is low, suspension short, anomaly low, low pressure accumulation. Pressure digestible. Intervention still works. If backlog is medium, suspension medium, anomaly medium, medium pressure bearing. Pressure beginning to structure, windows still open, but narrowing. If backlog is high, suspension long, anomaly normalized, high pressure critical, pressure systematized, system no longer waiting for repair, system waiting for wind. If backlog released, suspension settled, anomaly manifested, post-stability explosion. The billing cycle has arrived. 2 stories, both true, one you know, one you don't. 2008, Lehman Brothers. 5 years of being called the most sophisticated risk management system on Wall Street. The chief risk officer received board praise 18 months before bankruptcy. Wood decayed, wind absent. 2009, Boeing 737 MAX. 7 years as the best-selling aircraft in commercial aviation history. 8 consecutive years of the FAA delegating certification authority to Boeing's own engineers. Wall cracked, rain absent. Critics called it greed, supporters called it innovation, regulators called it systemic risk. The system doesn't care what you call it, the system just runs. And when the wind and rain arrive, the system accepts the inspection results of wood snapped and walls collapsed. This is not failure, this is maturity. 3 directions, not steps, directions. 1, start an inventory. Not a risk register, not a dashboard, just a document. Decisions deferred 3 months. Reason, promised re-review date. Who initiated the deferral? Accountability leads suspended 1 month. Investigation start date. Current status. Method of natural termination. Anomalies unattributed for 3 consecutive cycles. Label used, seasonal, isolated, case by case. Actual fluctuation magnitude. You are not required to fix any of this. You are only required to prevent it from becoming unretrievable memory. 2. Learn to see the 2 kinds of delay. Bearable delay, reason tied to resource constraints. Clear replaces arrangements during deferral. Someone identifiable says, "I'm carrying this temporarily." Unbearable accumulation, reason is awaiting further assessment, conditions not yet mature. Submitted to higher level. No replaces arrangements, problem is frozen, not managed. Bearable delay is management rhythm. Unbearable accumulation is pressure storage. Don't treat them the same way. 3. Set your own exposure thresholds, not for the organization, for you. When backlog exceeds 12 items and keeps growing for 9 months, reduce your career anchoring in this system. When suspended accountability involves your direct network, clarify your scope and terminus in writing, not for them, for you. When the same anomaly has been seasonal for 3 consecutive years, stop borrowing their vocabulary. Start your own parallel tracking. These thresholds are not for declaration. They are for internal calibration. At this moment, should I increase or decrease my exposure? None of this predicts the date. None of this makes your warnings more credible. Clarity isn't protection. It's just the qualification to name what phase you're in. But next time someone asks, "How did this happen? Weren't we stable?" You won't say, "I know, I didn't see it either." You'll say, 27 months, 11 deferred authority decisions, 4 suspended investigations, 1 metric labeled seasonal for 9 consecutive quarters, while it drifted further from forecast every cycle. The wind just chose today. One sounds like shock. The other sounds like you read the balance sheet before the billing date. One more thing. You'll notice something about the timing. The system doesn't usually settle these accounts when things are bad. It settles them when things are great. Because only at the peak does the system have enough surplus to absorb the cost of removal. The crisis isn't the failure. The crisis is the fee. Next episode, L3-61, why purges often happen at peak performance periods, and how to tell whether you're watching reform or the most refined pressure transfer technique ever designed.